Hello, welcome to the show. My name is Damon Bennett. I'm your host again for today. Welcome again to the My Wrong Opinion podcast. Good to see how you. Hope you all doing good. Hope everything's going well. Um, it's pretty much things have been going pretty well for me so far as of lately. I haven't really been having too many issues. I've been adjusting to the temperature, getting ready for. I'm on break now because I work as a behavioral specialist at an alternative school. So currently during summer break, we don't have to work. So I'm just making some little extra money doing little stuff here and there, and also doing this. So that's a little bit about me, kind of how my day and week has been going so far. If anybody watched my Periscope broadcast earlier this week, you saw my reaction to The Last of Us 2 and my whole opinion on stuff on that. It's been an interesting time for sure when it comes to video games because it doesn't really seem like. Well, before I get into the topic, let me just say, welcome to the show. Like I said again, this is my wrong opinion podcast, episode number 5. I'm pretty sure. And again, my name is Damon Bennett. I'm your host for today. And so yeah, going back to what I was talking about before. So yeah, video games seem to be a very interesting space. Some of them, where it seems like for some reason, and just media in general, there seems to be like a disconnect between creators and their audiences. For where for some reason, um, I can't quite put it all into words, but The Last of Us 2 specifically is just an interesting case where somebody has ideals and it comes across as if those are shoehorned so aggressively into a narrative that it almost makes the entire experience disingenuous. Um, Again, I haven't played the game per se. I've just been listening to a lot of people's gripes about it, seeing people's opinions on it, and me myself, again, never really having too much of an interest in the game itself. It's just interesting to see people's perspective on it. And of course, there's bias everywhere, so I can't say for sure that their assessments are accurate, but it just seems like there's a lot of, more so than anything else, it seems like there's just more dissatisfaction from what we were given with the first game to what we got now with the second. It just seems like cha- direction matters and directors matter. And when you change directors in the way that they did, and um, I guess for whatever you want to call it, Neil Druckmann had clearly had an agenda. He had an idea. He had something he wanted to push, and just went for it. And I will say, at the end of the day, as a man who is a content creator himself, I respect the the the. I wouldn't even call it guts because it's not really that gutsy nowadays to make games like this. But I would say I do respect the artists' um, desire, I guess, to create whatever it is they want to create, and they do have the freedom to do that. It's just, I guess, in this particular situation, and in situations like this, like I know Battlefield One had a similar experience, where it just seems like it's more about, I guess, pushing an agenda than it is about telling a enthralling story. Like, there's a way to do both, and I feel like certain creators, certain developers have a hard time reconciling those two things. Um, like I said, the example I got again, Last of Us 2, and another one, Battlefield 1, where it's like you're suspending reality for the purpose of creating, like, I guess, fabricating situations in which the conclusion comes out the way you want it to come out, as opposed to kind of gently and innov- gently and creatively integrating that ideal belief, whatever you want to call it, into the narrative itself. Like, there's a way to do both. And I don't think people would be as upset with The Last of Us 2 if the execution of the narrative was done a lot better. And that's why I say execution matters. And it has to matter because, especially when it comes to video games, we interact with it mechanically. It's not just a visual medium, it's not just an auditory medium. Like, we actually interact with it with our hands, things like that. So we're immersed in it in more ways than one. And when you create a narrative that has you killing a main character that you beloved and cared about in the previous one, and now you're playing as the person that killed them, you're typically not going to receive that well. And I mean, sometimes, I mean, it was an attempt to be bold, and much like The Last Jedi, because that's the best example I have here, bold for the sake of bold doesn't really give you the response you're looking for. And I guess that's the reason why it's so polarizing, is because you did something and you didn't really, like I said before in the Periscope. I don't want to keep repeating it, but you didn't do the work to earn it. It's just as simple as that. You didn't do the work to earn it, and if you don't put in the effort, you can't expect people to respond to it favorably. Because there's like you watch on the whatever the Metacritic, their their review, the Metacritic review is very favorable, but the user review is not good at all. I'm guessing that most of that just came from overall dissatisfaction with the execution of the story. I honestly believe people wouldn't have been as offended at. Spoiler warning, by the way, for Last of Us 2, if you haven't played it yet. Spoiler warning. I don't think any of us would have been as offended at Joel getting killed if it hadn't happened literally in the first, what, hour of the game? If that. And you don't try so hard to make the character Ellie that we cared about so much make her look like she's the bad guy and like force it. Like you're not even trying to gently coax us into, well, is it or isn't it? You're not giving the audience the chance to interpret. You are just straight up saying Ellie's the bad guy, Abby's the good guy, and we're going to make you believe that whether you want to or not. Now again, that's all perception. And I could be wrong, but it's that's kind of the thing that we're working with here. Um, and again, as a storyteller, as anybody who wants to create narratives and a content creator in general, you want people to feel challenged. You want to, if you're that type of person, you do have the ability to challenge people's ideals. You have the ability to challenge their perceptions. But again, much like with anything else, there's a way to do it that won't leave your audience feeling like they were alienated or just left out on an island. And especially for someone that we've grown to care about so much, like Ellie, to give her that type of story, it execution matters, like I said, and it just wasn't executed well enough for me to follow you along the trail. And I said it before in the Periscope. If you want to see my full breakdown of it, you can go to that. So that's just kind of more I'll say about that. As a content creator and as a person in general who appreciates media, execution matters, and taking the time to earn the payoff matters. All right, anyway. So we're gonna move on to news, general news. We got a lot of things to talk about. First things up. So Freddie Gibbs and DJ Akademiks. So Freddie Gibbs and DJ got into a beef recently, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Apparently on, I think it was Everyday Struggle, DJ Akademiks, I misspelled his name. Let me see if I can change that real fast. Well, I didn't misspell it. I spelled it properly, but yeah, there we go. My thing changed it for me. But anyway, now he evidently said that Freddie Gibbs wasn't relevant. I think the conversation came up between Freddie Gibbs and I think Jadakiss. I think it was Jadakiss. And DJ was saying that Freddie Gibbs isn't as relevant as Jadakiss, blah, 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 blah. And Freddie Gibbs took exception to that and was like, yo, what are you talking about? Basically was just clowning him. And DJ and him kind of been going back and forth on Twitter a lot. And seeing a lot of the stuff that Freddie's been posting is hilarious to me. But I guess just overall, I feel like probably Freddie feels disrespected, as he should, because I've only recently became a Freddie Gibbs fan, and that was because of Bandana, the one that he did with Madlib, and I didn't realize that he had that much skill. Like he's a really good rapper. And on top of that, he's a funny dude. Like you watch some of his music videos, he's pretty funny. He's got a good sense of humor, and I guess that translates well into his social media presence because he's frying this cat, DJ. He's frying DJ, clean and clear. DJ Akademiks for sure. I mean, for him, I already offer it. I never really kind of liked DJ Akademiks all like that. I didn't really have as much respect for him as I think other people might have, only just because I watched him on Everyday Struggle back when Joe Budden was on the show. And he always had the opinion that I didn't like. Like he may have a couple of times had something that I resonated with, but I found myself more often than not siding with Joe on those typical debates than I did on DJ's side. And it just, I don't know. I gotta go back and look at the videos and know for sure why I felt that way. But it was always like, bro, what are you saying? Like, come on, dog. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah 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 blah. So it just kind of came that way for me when it comes to DJ X. So when he ended up coming at my boy Freddie, I was like, oh yeah, no, bro, you wilding now. You wilding now. Regardless if he had a valid point or not, I guess just throwing him into the conversation like that just wasn't a good idea. And clearly it shows. Because everybody and their mama at this point is just agreeing that DJ lost this beef. If you can even call it a beef. Yeah, man. And it goes in whole social media presence and like how bold people get when they're not in your face and stuff like that. But that's life. That's life. That's life. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. We're probably gonna be breezing through these, y'all, which is fine. I'm gonna try and keep it at an hour. There's no guarantee I will. I'm gonna try and keep it at an hour, but we'll see how it goes. So that's that. So Australia recently got a whole bunch of long-range missiles, evidently as their defense budget had increased, or they got a whole bunch of money. So they're, I think it's their prime minister. Let me double check. I don't think it's their prime minister, but basically they're like, yo, there's been a lot of tension, territorial conflict, I guess you could say, in the Indo-Pacific region. And Australia themselves were like, look, at any moment in time, this conflict could come our way. We need to make sure that we're prepared properly. So they armed themselves with long-range missiles and significantly boosted their defense spending as a part of a $270 billion buildup for the defense force. But yeah, and it's mostly fueled by China's militarization, and they're just trying to keep up with the arms race. But I think it's just, especially now at this time specifically that we're in, it's just interesting to see how the world is reacting to things that are developing. And honestly, I don't want to be like a doomsday preacher. I don't want to be like that type of guy. But it just seems like there's a lot of cogs moving, and before we know it, we're going to find ourselves in a situation that I don't think any of us might have expected. And I feel like it's going to start in that area because Australia, uh, as according to the news reports, this is the first. This is unprecedented. The fact that Australia has done this, it felt the need to do this. There must be something going on in the Eastern Hemisphere that's making Australia take notice. And I'm sure there's probably other stories of other countries and continents that are doing a very similar thing. But it's just, like I said, it's interesting to see how the world is kind of shaping and molding as the COVID epidemic has come about, and just how people are responding to political leaders and how shifts in power are starting. It's interesting to note, I guess is what I'm saying. But yeah, Australia ain't playing around. They're strapping up and they're ready to go if it goes there. Which again, I can't blame them. I can't blame them for that. And that could potentially turn into a conversation about defense spending and stuff like that, which gets us into our national budget. Which, I mean, there's plenty of conversation we can have about that. But that's just something I wanted to make y'all aware of. So the sun in 10 years. So there's I think it was NASA. Maybe not NASA. Let me make sure I got my sources right. Yeah, it was NASA. They made a 10-year time lapse of the sun. So basically, it's an hour-long video where they've recorded or watched the sun, and they've been recording it apparently for over 10 years, and you get to watch as the sun had matured over that course of time. It's actually a pretty interesting video. I actually, now as we talk about it, I'm not exactly sure how they were able to record it for that long. I guess they just had a camera somewhere on the base and just had it like record it, and they just kept changing out the film, or I don't know. But they started in 2010, obviously, and they've been doing it ever since. And they finally released it. But yeah, I'll post the link in the description later on. But that if you guys want to check out that video, it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. If you want to just fast forward through all of it and kind of see how the sun has changed or did not change or what has developed on it, it's just when you start going into astronomy and space and stuff like that, and all the infinite numbers of things that happen out there, it is mind blowing, obviously. But yeah, that was a little interesting thing for somebody else. All right, so Will and Jada. So apparently, I didn't know this. Will and Jada Smith. So Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith. As you guys know, they're married, but they have also, I guess, I don't know how recent it's been since they've said this, but evidently they're in an open marriage. And for those of you who aren't aware of what an open marriage is, it basically means that we're married, but we can be with other people, and I guess they're just cool with that. That brings into me a conversation that I have about that. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with that for a number of reasons. One being religious reasons, and two being like just, just no. I can't. I mean, again, but I can't judge another person's lifestyle like that. I can't say like how could you blah 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 blah, because we don't live in those times right now. If they were Christian, it'd be a different story, but clearly they're not. They're just kind of living their own life. So I mean, they have the freedom to do it. So if they're cool with it, they're cool with it. But apparently, during one of the, and I guess this situation specifically is one of the reasons why I'm not down with open marriages, is because this guy August, I can't even know, I don't even remember his last name. And honestly, I don't even feel like going into the effort to figure out his last name. But he's an R&B singer, and he apparently had relations with Jada Pinkett. And now he's coming out about how he loves her and he's frustrated, blah 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 about whatever. And apparently, the social media the social media stratosphere is just kind of clowning the dude for it, as they should. And this is just an unfortunate consequence of having open marriages. That like people are going to catch feelings. It's going to happen, whether it's the spouse is doing it or the person the spouse is with is doing it. It's just it's not. I'm not gonna say it's always unavoidable because I'm sure you can have plenty of consensual relations without people really getting too overly attached. But it's my firm belief that sex changes a lot of things, and it changes feelings for sure, especially. And it seems like August. Now, obviously, Jada Pinkett is denying this, as she should, because who would ever admit to being something like this? Because it's scandalous. Even though they've openly articulated that they are doing this and that it is consensual, I wouldn't want my name attached to this particular individual either, because again, he sounds like I said, he caught feelings, and if I was Will in this situation, I'd be feeling some type of way, like yo, I let you in my house, I let you whatever it is with my wife, and you're coming out talking about you love her and stuff, like bro, you need to chill, like you need to chill. Even though I can't really sympathize too much with Will because he allowed it in the first place, but I mean again, that's just kind of the whole. I mean, I haven't really heard or seen how Will has responded to this situation, but I can't imagine it being positive. Or Will might not care. Who knows? But I just like the idea of an open marriage and the implications behind it. Like it, stuff like this is bound to happen, and it's just drama that I don't need in my life. On top of the reasons why I already don't rock with open marriages in the first place. So that's the consequence that they get. It's just it is what it is. So you can't really knock them for it. Can't really applaud them for it. It's just a thing. But I haven't seen really too much what's developed since then. I don't know if there's been a conversation or what. But as of right now, it's a he said she said, and most people are kind of siding with Jada on this. I actually don't. I believe that they probably got together because nobody's gonna put themselves out. I mean, it's music, it's pop culture, it's entertainment. Anybody could be willing to do anything at any price. So I wouldn't be surprised if August came out with this lie to get publicity in order to get his rollout going for his next album coming out. I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm sure as a result of this controversy that a lot of people have been looking at August's music because that's human nature. That's just how we roll. We see something dramatic, we want to look at the person that made it. I wonder the type of music this person makes. And next thing you know, it gets more buzz or whatever. And some people do that. I mean, and in some cases it works. Who knows? This might improve August's career. It might not. But the point, I guess, is just whether it's intentional or not, he put himself out there like that in a way that well, I should say some of us are looking at like, yo, bro, you for real? Like, you ain't a real one for that. And others of them are kind of, I guess, indifferent or just in it for the laughs because I'm sure it's a funny story. Like I said, he said, she said, drama. I actually believe that August did this. I believe that they were actually in a relationship together, and Jada's trying to deny it, obviously for public relation reasons. But yeah, I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Some men have lied for far less in way worse ways. So it's possible. Next up is Seth Rogen and Tina. So Seth Rogen apparently has a production company. Not a production company. He has a, what you call it? He's a producer. I'll say that. He's a producer. And he is apparently going to be producing a new CG animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, which is interesting for sure. But it's going to be him and him and his team. I can't. What's the name? Paramount Pictures will be distributing it. Point Grey Pictures is his production company, so that's it. And then he's working with Evan Goldberg, James Weaver, and they'll be working with Nickelodeon Animation Studios to produce this. I don't think as far as I know, there's no release date yet. Yeah, there's no release date yet, but it is in the works, and they're in talks, and they're starting to create it, which again is cool. I mean, I like Seth Rogen. I like him as an actor. Well, I shouldn't say I like him as an actor, meaning that I think he's a good actor. I liked him as an actor because I thought he was funny, and he does. And he's got a pretty interesting sense of humor that I've enjoyed for some of his movies. I haven't watched all of them, but the ones that I have watched, I've enjoyed. And I think, I don't know, Seth Rogen just kind of seems like that dude who's kind of in tune with nerd culture. I mean, obviously, because perceptively he looks like a nerd. He seems like he's in tune with that type of stuff. I feel like he would kind of give TMNT the care that it deserves because, I mean, I saw the Michael Bay movies. And that's another thing that's frustrating when it comes to Hollywood. It seems like there's a lot of executives and a lot of people who really don't understand or aren't really in touch with the audience that they think they're trying to reach. And it's TMNT in the last two iterations is a clear-cut example of what happens when business executives or people who are responsible production companies don't understand the IP that they've inherited, and they give it to somebody else who has no idea what to do with the IP, and so they just turn it into something that they think is going to work, and it just completely bombs in front of their face. This is a prime example of that. I don't think it'll be the same way with Seth Rogen. I think because I feel like, and I would believe, if Seth Rogen were to come out and say, "Yeah, I've been a TMNT fan for the longest, and I've always wanted to do this," I would believe that, and I'm favorably looking towards him putting the love and care into this that it should rightfully deserve. And on top of that, working with Nickelodeon Studios, which apparently I think this is their first CG animated film. So it's just going to be interesting. There's some things that make me skeptical about it, obviously because it's Nickelodeon Studios' first time working with a CG animation studio. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think this is their first time doing it. But yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how things go, how they respond, and who's gonna what's the narrative? What we're gonna play off of? Are we going off the old comic books, the 1980 joints where cats were getting their arms decapitated, or severed off, or are we gonna go back to the classic 1990s TMNT where it's just like pizza and having a good time? We'll see, we'll see. But either way, I'm optimistic. That's more so what I'm trying to say. So that's it for that. Next up, reviews and reactions. I only have one today. So it is Wash Us in the Blood by Kanye West. So Kanye West worked with Travis Scott and released a single recently that was called Wash Us in the Blood. As we all know, Kanye has recently come out to be a born-again Christian. He came out with an album called Jesus is King, and has been, at least in the public eye, has been proclaiming his newly found faith in Jesus and talking about how he wants to be used for the kingdom. And a lot of us were skeptical, myself included. I was waiting to see what would happen next after Jesus is King, and it seems like now he's continuing that trend. I watched the video. I only watched it once. As I saw the video, I could tell this was a Kanye West brainchild, because it's like you're peering into what he thinks and you're peering into his perception. And there's a lot of imagery in there, a lot of sharp imagery, a lot of aggressive imagery. I think there was even a image in there from a Kendrick Lamar video. I'm pretty sure there was a black dude with a bloodied up face. I think that was from a Kendrick Lamar video, but either way, it's Kanye West visual with Kanye West like almost Yeezus like production and song structure. It just seems similar to that vibe. But I guess part of it is because of the content in it is, I guess, more Christ-centric that makes it, or Christocentric that makes it seem a little bit more easier to receive. I don't know, but again, as me being a born again Christian, I find it might just be easier for me to receive because of that. I'm not sure, but again, I gotta listen to it. I wouldn't say that I liked this song per se. I'm not gonna say that I hated it either. I'm just kind of indifferent about it, I guess. I gotta listen to it a couple more times to know what I feel about it. But according to what some people are saying, this is the new single off of his upcoming album, which is going to be interesting to see what type of direction he's going to take us in with this one, because it seems like he's going again back into that experimental phase that he did with Yeezus, and I guess refining it or trying to refine it a little bit more. I don't know, but it was an interesting listen for sure. I was interested in seeing what he was going to do musically, coming off of Jesus is King, and I guess he's going in this type of direction now. So that is Wash Us in the Blood. He also came out on Twitter recently talking about how he was working with Dr. Dre. I think this song actually is, I think, one of those songs that he was working on him with. But yeah, apparently he's collaborating with Dr. Dre to come out with an album as well, which should be interesting to see. Yeah. And if you want to see that post, it might still be up, it might not be, but it was under the hashtag WestDayEver. So, I mean, look that up if you're interested. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Kanye does with his career. He said before in interviews he doesn't care if he loses the notoriety and fame. He doesn't care about that because he's about the kingdom now. We'll see. We'll see if this new iteration is him actually showing us that his word is bond in this situation. So we'll see. All right, so next up, the opinion section. So I got a good amount of stuff. It's not that much. I don't know. It's a good amount of stuff. So yeah, my wrong opinion. So my first up is Who do you guys think have the better fights? So I was scrolling on Twitter recently, and I saw a post that said that Naruto has some of the best. In comparison to One Piece, Naruto has better fights. And for me, I guess it just brings up an interesting discussion. Who really had the better fights when it comes between Naruto and One Piece? When I think about fights, when I initially think about, I think about animation, I think about hands, and after that, I think about impacts, I think about tone, I think about even the music involved, I think about the situation. I get what actually falls under impact, context, all those different things. And when I think about that, I think that mm, it's a good one. I can't call it a tie because I don't think it's a tie. But when I think about One Piece fights, I'm thinking about like, and obviously One Piece started way before Naruto did when it came to animation. So I'm thinking about that too. Like their production quality wasn't nearly as good as Naruto's was initially. But I'm thinking about like some of their fights early on, especially early on, were like more cartoonish, but they were violent. But the one fight I'm thinking about the most when I think about One Piece, I'm thinking about Enies Lobby. Enies Lobby when when they were facing off against CP7 and it was Luffy versus Rob Lucci. And I'm thinking about the tone of that. We saw Gear Second. We saw that was one of the last fights I think in the series where it was just one on one straight up, and there was no teaming up to take down somebody. Um, I just think about I keep going back to that specific fight and like how even when I first saw it I was like, whoa, this is intense. And like all the impact of it, you're saving Robin, who now just declared that she wants to live, and how emotional of a moment that was. It was the burning down of the world government flag, and Luffy officially saying, "Bring on the world, I don't care." like the straight gangster he had, and then beating Rob Lucci, who was the leader of the CP7, and then the breaking through of the wall and everybody seeing Rob Lucci get defeated and the shocked looks on their faces and seeing Gear third, and then the Sunny coming up to save the day. It was just a very emotional moment, and it was a very impactful moment for me especially, and that's one of the moments that made Enies Lobby specifically one of the more impactful arcs in the One Piece story. When I think about Naruto, the one fight I'm thinking about is Madara versus the entire Shinobi army. And when I think about that, I'm thinking about like the dude was just wrecking cats left and right, and was just showing clearly who the best basically who the best Shinobi was on the block. This dude was laying cats out, and when we come to like straight hands and animation, it's got that fight beating spades, and completely. But when I think about emotional impact, when I think about gravity of the situation, obviously the world's at stake because Madara is getting ready to try and start the Infinite Tsukiyomi. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The Infinite Tsukiyomi. Basically trying to entrap the world again under influence of Kagura, or Kagaya. Kagura, I think her name is Kagura Otsutsuki. The god of all shinobi, or not the god of all shinobi, she was the what's she called? She was called like the god of all creation, something like that. But either way, she was like the progenitor for who would become the god of the shinobi, which was Kagoromo Otsutsuki. I'm nerding out right now, but anyway. But yeah, so I'm thinking about that fight, and there is gravity there, there is stake there, but I guess it's just not as personal. So for me, it doesn't have as much weight. Like you're watching that fight more so for the spectacle than you are for the actual impact of the fight itself. Like obviously the fight matters, and it has to matter because if they lose, basically the whole world is over. And I think about how all the five Kages had to come together, and you see them display their skills and how epic some of their skills were. Like I can't remember Homeboy's name, but the guy who has the dust release, how awesome he was, and how he had to basically stop. And then when Madara brought down a meteor from the sky, and then he brought down another meteor from the sky, it was just crazy. It was crazy. That fight was crazy. And I compare those two, and they kind of break even for me in some ways. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of lean more towards One Piece in that regard. Just because for me, like the more interpersonal connection, the more it wasn't obviously to the same scale, but for that moment specifically for the One Piece crew, it was a pivotal moment for them in their development as a crew, and them coming out on top of that, which was I think one of the It was, I think, the second or third time they were. No, it was the second time that they were in a situation that just seemed impossible, but they came out on top, and it's just like that's really cool. That was really cool. To whereas at that point in Naruto, I think that was the end of the series. Everything was wrapping up. There was really nowhere to go from there. So they were really just trying to go out with a bang. I can't think of any other ones apart from that. Maybe Naruto versus Gaara when they fought for the first time, and Naruto basically was like, "Yo, cats have been clowning me ever since up until this point, but let it be known, I ain't playing." That was pretty cool too. I did enjoy that fight a lot, actually. Rock Lee versus Gaara. I'm gonna be honest. The more I think about it, I think One Piece had probably one of the most impactful fights in comparison of the two, but I think Naruto overall probably had more fights that were better stacked up against One Piece. So I guess One Piece has like one fight that I remember that was significantly like it was like up here, but Naruto had like way more fights that were like right here. So if I had to say better fights overall, I'm gonna say Naruto. I'll just say that although that is the case, Naruto doesn't have any of the. Well, actually, I take that back. Sasuke versus Itachi was pretty impactful too, and Naruto. You know what? Naruto's got the better fights. I'll say that. Naruto does have better fights than One Piece, and I'm a One Piece stan basically. I love One Piece, which is hard for me to admit. And I was trying to give One Piece the nod, but no, Naruto had way too many better fights. Although I will say though, I guess in that same breath, Naruto had better fights overall, but One Piece had one fight in particular that was like S tier for me. So that was my opinion on that. So in the Spider-Man franchise, which franchise you guys think was the best? I'm going to let you guys know right out the gate. I think the MCU franchise is the best one. I'm saying that for a couple of reasons. One, because I feel like this is one of the few times where we've seen a Peter Parker and a Spider-Man character both played well. I didn't like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. I especially didn't like him in the third movie. That was a train wreck from start to finish. I didn't like Amazing Spider-Man. I wanted to like Amazing Spider-Man, but I wanted to like it simply because of how much I didn't like the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man. And I don't hate Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Like when it first came out, I was cool with it, but it was really campy, and that just kind of rubbed me the wrong. I would say rubbed me the wrong way, but it was like, man, there could have been so much more we did with this. And that was again Sony showing us that they don't know what they're doing with their IP, and they did the same. They tried to do better with the Amazing Spider-Man, but it just didn't. It didn't hit like it should have. It didn't hit like it should have. And that wasn't a bad movie either. I'm not gonna say they were terrible. Well, the second one was, but the first one actually had promise, and I kind of enjoyed it. But even then, it still just didn't. But when I saw Homecoming for the first time, I was like, that's it. That's what I was looking for. When Marvel Studios finally stepped in and was like, look, guys, kind of like, kind of pushing back, like, look, guys, we got this. Sure enough, they did because they did a great job. They did a great job. I enjoyed it. And that's Marvel bias. I will completely admit that. That's Marvel bias for sure. But for me, I'll say that franchise was the best. And I haven't even seen the second movie. I'm basing that off of Homecoming alone. Strictly off of Homecoming alone. Which I guess is my indication that I would put Homecoming up against both franchises and it trumps them both in one movie. So that's my opinion. I'm allowed to have. But yeah, that's kind of my thing. But what do you guys think? Feel free to comment below what you guys think the best Spider-Man franchise was, the best, and why. CD Projekt Red. So CD Projekt Red, for those of y'all who don't know, is the developers of The Witcher 3, well, The Witcher series video games. They also are making the new game coming out called Cyberpunk 2077. And I believe they made some other ones. I think they made Crisis 2. I might be misremembering that. I'm gonna double check, but as I'm talking, yeah. But I wanted to bring them up specifically because I feel that they are doing game development right. And people who kind of look and kind of watch the industry closely, some of them who are kind of about that life look at that the same way. Like, yeah, we're friends of CD Projekt Red, specifically because they're really good at the games that they make. First off, they create quality products, which is what matters. And then on top of that, they are consumer friendly. And what I mean by consumer friendly is that they're not out to just like leech as much money out of you as possible, and they're not out to basically, because I mean the gaming business now the game is messed up. Basically, is what I'm saying. And I did tell you guys I was a pod for another time, but it is true that it started with downloadable content and it just escalated from there. Where when we started with downloadable content, it was a new thing. Everybody was excited about it. Like, wow, we get to have additional content on top of the IPs, and developers were happy because maybe because of deadline constraints or whatever, they couldn't put more into the game than they would have liked to. So at first, it was a fun thing. It was something that some of us were looking forward to. It was like, all right, we get some alternative stories, we get some different characters, blah 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 blah. But then what started happening is over the course of time, some game developers just decided, you know what, we're gonna double down on this. So on top of having our customers pay $60 for this game, we're gonna take elements out of the game that's already been completed. We're going to purposefully remove that from the game itself and hide that as DLC for later on. Best example I have of this, one of the best examples I have of this, is Asura's Wrath. Asura's Wrath literally had the ending of the game completely taken out and saved as DLC for later. It just in it, that wasn't the start of it, but it was one of the moments that had me saying, "Yep, the game industry is ruined." Because what happened and what continued to happen, like I said before, is that they took key elements out of the game, they stripped them out, stripped them down, gave you pretty much a half finished game, and told you that the other half of it's coming out later in DLC, which basically has you paying up to $100 or more, depending on what the DLC package was, for a game that you should have bought once at $60. And that just, it didn't stop from there. It just kept happening, mostly with AAA titles and AAA developers that would just continue to do this predatory practice. And it eventually just trickled down into microtransactions, which we have in pretty much every single game now, where it's not even it's not traditional microtransactions where you're paying for cosmetics, stuff like skins on guns and stuff like that. Stuff that really doesn't impact the game as a whole. It won't impact your ability to win or lose. But now they're doing these pay to win formats, and mobile games are taking this to a whole nother level. Whereas, like, as long as you put, like, the more money you put into the game, the more chance you're going to have to win, which basically just removes skill out of the game entirely, and it turns it into, all right, who's going to give us the most money? And you got people like, and then you got the whole whale thing and how that works. And for those of you who don't know what whales are the people that game developers know for a fact will pay X amount of dollars for all the stuff that they're offering. Basically, that means, so even though they give you a half finished game, they're gonna buy that $60 game. They're also gonna buy the hundreds upon hundreds of dollars of DLC afterwards and all the microtransactions within, because there are people out there who really don't think about or care about exactly how much they're getting screwed over. But for the rest of us out here who actually are economically like aware and are kind of pissed off at these predatory practices, there's a lot of us that are like, no, we ain't rocking with that. But gaming developers, some of them don't even care about that. They care more about reaching their bottom line, which, again, if you're a business, that's what you care about at the end of the day. That's what most of these guys up in here in these offices care about. Some of them are game developers, not even game developers. Some of them are business execs and studio officials that have never played a video game a day in their lives. And they have way too much input on how the game should be developed. They have way too much say in what mechanics should be or shouldn't be in the game. They, like I said, create these situations in which you're basically screwed unless you give us an extra $40 or $50 in order to even have a chance at being good at this game. It's trash. Again, Star Wars Battlefront, like the dice game that came out, is a good example of that, where you and on top of that, when you have things like basically gambling, you're throwing money into a pot, you're cranking the lever, and you're hoping to get something good out of it. It's a predatory practice. It doesn't need to be in video games, especially in console games. It doesn't need to be there. It doesn't need to be there. And the whole idea of games as a service and that being a controversial topic, which it is because it's bullcrap, it's ridiculous. Like, it's different if games were free. If games were free, I wouldn't have an issue. If games were like $10, you make me pay $10 for a video game, and then give me like $50, $60 worth of DLC after. I got no reason to complain because the game was $10, but you're making me pay full price for a video game that's half complete, and then having me pay an extra 40 or 50 after that to get the actual game experience I was supposed to have in the first place. I don't rock with that. And CD Projekt Red, for their credit, has never done that. Like, they have microtransactions. I think they have microtransactions. I think they have them in 3, but I think they have them as like their side game, their Gwent game, I think is what it is, which is a really fun game. And even then, in that game, you don't have to pay to be better at it. It's just you pay for them if you want them. And again, I respect that. I respect these guys because The Witcher 3 was a good game. They care about actually creating a good product. And then on top of that, they sometimes give you, sometimes, let me be honest with you, sometimes it feels like they give you more than you deserve, honestly, for their games. They just pack it full to the brim of the stuff. And it makes me care about what they're coming out with next. So, of course, there's a lot of people that are hype about Cyberpunk 2077 because this developer has developed a trust in me for me to look forward to what they're coming out with next. That consumer creator relationship is important. And the more you alienate that, the more you, monopolize that or monetize that, the more you, at the expense of creating distrust, try to weed and pull out as many dollars as you can. You create consumer distrust, which will ultimately, although you have a boom in your sales initially, will have a severe spike. You'll dip immediately after because people will immediately recognize what's bullcrap and they won't rock with it anymore. That's why you see EA struggling with their IPs. Like I don't think they're struggling as much with their I think they are with their Battlefield and Battlefront IPs because they completely lobotomized that for the purpose of gaining a quick buck. And now look at them; they're in a bad situation. It's just like with BioWare. It's the same thing with BioWare. BioWare, EA got a hold of them. They did a whole bunch of bull crap, and now look at them. They're struggling. Anthem tanked completely. I have not seen a single game shot of that game since it came out. And people were hyped about it. But the very second they started finding out some of the crap that they put in there, they immediately were turned off by it. As they should, because it was ridiculous in the first place to even have that be there. But now here we are. And now people are looking forward to game developers like CD Projekt that actually do care about creating a quality experience and not just trying to weasel you out of as much money as possible. They're actually trying to give you an experience for that $60 you spent and actually making you want to buy more content to support their product. That's what matters. And they have a good relationship with their consumers. They care about their customers. They actually want them to experience a fulfilling experience off rip, which creates longevity, which is something that I think some of these developers and honestly entertainment people period have forgotten about. Longevity. You can have a boom immediately for sure. It's easy to do that. But what really matters is how long people are going to rock with you. Can you create an experience that is going to come up but also level out and stay constant? And most game developers, I'll say most, are just in it for that initial spike and they really don't care if the game tanks after. But CD Projekt Red works a little bit differently. It's like, no, we're going to create something, it's going to be good, and then we're going to have it good enough to where it lasts this long. I think it came out in Witcher 3, I think it came out in 2015, 2016? I could be wrong. No, it came out later than that. It might have been 2017. I could be wrong. I could be off. But either way, it came out, and I'm still playing that game. That game was fun. It is fun, and I got the DLCs and all that, because it was a game that was worth playing. And CD Projekt Red is my prime example of consumer creator relationship. Those things, the healthier that relationship is, the better off you ultimately are because you're developing a fan base that will trust you. And trust matters. Trust matters. Next up, white people. So, I've had some interactions with a few white folk lately with regards to George Floyd and the racial tensions that are going on in America. And I remember one specifically where there was a white person, young white lady, that was just frustrated because she desperately wanted to help. And you could hear it in the voice as we were talking. She wanted to help, but she was frustrated because it seemed like everything that she did was wrong. If I try to help, I'm wrong. If I stay silent, I'm wrong. If I share my opinion, I'm wrong. If I don't stand alongside black people, I'm wrong. It was and to be in her shoes, I could understand the stress and frustration. I can understand how some white people just feel completely insecure about stepping into this space completely because it doesn't seem like any choice they make is good. And that's fair because, for the most part, some of their choices have not been good. It just hasn't been good. And then you can, but you can't really blame them. And I'm talking more about good-hearted white folk. The ones that actually do want to help and try and be like people that want to actually try and be a part of the solution as opposed to either not caring about or continuing to be a part of the problem. I feel for them. I do. Because it sucks. It sucks to want to try and feel like no matter what you're trying, you're failing. And that's why I told them as an encouragement, it's important to ask the people that are struggling, i.e., black folk. It's important to ask them how they want you to help. That's what's important. And I told her that. And when she heard that, you could tell it clicked. Like that ball started rolling. Because I know, because for some reason, white folk at times have a tendency to want to try and be the savior. And I said this before. They want to try and be the savior. They want to come in with what they think is the solution for black people, as opposed to letting black people tell them what the solution actually is. Um, White people, for whatever you want to call it, white guilt, whatever you want to call it, they have that desire, which is a good desire. They want to help, but they feel like their way to help is the best way to do it. And some of them get frustrated when they find out that it wasn't. And I respect the effort, I respect the try, but I also want to encourage, if you are any one of those white people out there who actually do care about our struggle and want to help us as we move forward in this climate, I just want to encourage you that there's nothing wrong with just simply asking if you have black friends, or even if you don't have black friends but just want to talk to black people, period. Like, hey, I want to help. I believe what you guys are going through is wrong. I believe the systemic oppression, all that stuff is there. What can I do to help? And just get some information. Unfortunately, you guys will face some pushback on that. It's not fair. Well, I can't say it's not fair. I would say it's not fair that it's happening to you because you actually want to do something about it. But it's a result of trauma that we've all experienced at the hands of people that look like you. It's just not fair to you, but it is what it is. And I respect for those of you who actually are willing to step into this space and actually try to help be a part of the solution, even coming at the expense of, some of you guys are arguing with family members right now. Some of you guys are losing friendships right now. Some of you guys are even losing members of your church right now because of the battle that you're choosing to fight. And honestly, I appreciate that. The sacrifice you're making has not gone unnoticed, at least by me. I appreciate that sacrifice, and I will continue to encourage you, because the fight that you're fighting for is a fight worth fighting for. It is a fight worth fighting for. And for those of my Christian brothers and sisters out there, I know for a fact that God is, based off scripture, I know that he approves of this. He approves of when his people take up the cause of those who are struggling, oppressed, who are downtrodden or disenfranchised. I know God looks at that with favor. And I know that he also looks with anger at those who don't. So I appreciate you guys for taking and sharing the heart of Christ in this situation and being willing to engage this space with humility and love. I appreciate that. I'll just say that. God bless some of y'all. Y'all struggling. But we're struggling too. So now you can sympathize with us in our suffering. And now at least get a little bit of an insight on what it's like to be black in this country. And understand that there are sacrifices that come with your skin color. And it sucks. And it shouldn't be that way. But that is the country we live in. That's what our country was founded on. So thank you guys for that struggle. Keep on struggling. Next up, all statues matter. So, with that being said, so as of lately, there's been, I'm sorry, it's funny. There's been a recent upsurge in people tearing down Confederate statues of old Confederate leaders and Confederate, I guess, Southern, whatever. I think a couple of them in Louisiana got torn down. There's a few more, South Carolina, I think, like North Carolina too, where these statues are getting torn down because they represent people that fought for and owned slaves, things like that. And you're seeing a lot of white people being upset about that. I posted recently about maybe a few days back where I had the hashtag all statues matter and hashtag all flags matter. Why are you guys only worried about the Confederate ones? It was tongue in cheek, and it was tongue in cheek for a reason, if that's even the right idiom to use. I purposefully stated that because, I mean, that, to be honest with you, that's what all lives matter is to us as black folk. That's what all lives matter is. We're telling you about a particular situation that's happening, but you want to try and generalize it into the broader spectrum. It's a similar situation here. I don't understand really too much about the reasons why white people are upset over these Confederate statues being torn down. I'm sure they have a Candace Owens video somewhere, or a Hodge Twins video somewhere, or a Terrence Williams Jr. video somewhere that I'm sure they're more than willing to put in this description to show me otherwise. That it's not just white people. But I just want to understand white folk are upset about these Confederate statues being torn down because they represent slavery. Like, it's the same thing about the Confederate flag. Like, Cass are talking about, no, it's about our history, it's about our heritage, blah, 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 blah. And my response to that is, yeah, slavery. Like, slavery is your heritage because the Confederates, when they became the Confederates because they wanted slavery. Like, it wasn't for any other reasons beyond that. That was one of the biggest reasons why they existed. And some cats put up statues and honorarium of these folk. Good and dang well, the only reason they joined the army is because they wanted to protect their slaves. They were slavers. They were slavers. Like, they didn't fight for freedom. They fought to keep freedom from a group of people. As a black person if I grew up in the South, I'd be pissed if these statues existed. I'd be mad. I'd be mad that I would go to a school named after a slave owner. I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want that at all. I don't want it up here in the North, Midwest, where I live. I couldn't imagine having to deal with that in the South. And so I guess we're at this point in this country where racial tensions are at an all-time high and people are taking action. And it was bound to happen. But it's just interesting to see how many white folk are actually enraged about this. And like I want to sympathize, but I can't. I really don't care about your statues either. I don't really care about them because they represent people that try to keep me from being free. So no, I don't care. Tear them all down. Like that's how I feel. I know it's raw. That's how I feel. Tear them all down. Who cares about them things? You didn't even care about them until you started seeing people tear them down. But now all of a sudden you want to get all in a tizzy. People, black folk, white folk, certain white folk want to talk about black folk playing victim all the time. It's just so funny seeing how many white folk are playing victim right now. Like, people that are trying to say the term Karen is racist. People that are saying that the Confederate flag and all this represents my history, why are you tearing it down, blah, blah, blah. People that get upset when we bring up the idea of white fragility and all this other stuff. It's just, it's hilarious. And I understand a little bit about why people get upset about the idea of white privilege. I actually just talked to a brother of mine recently who kind of helped me break that down. So I get it. I understand that if you are it almost seems as if at times it's like wrong to be white. And honestly, nowadays in this country, in this social climate specifically, I can understand that feeling. I can understand that feeling of someone who actually is racial, who cares about racial reconciliation, who actually cares about his black brothers and sisters. So I can understand how it would feel like you're being demonized because of your skin color. It sucks. I'm not going to take that away from you. It sucks. But that same person that I talked to was like, yeah, I understand that, but I mean, that's what you guys deal with every single day. And I was like, yeah. So again, it gives people an opportunity to kind of sympathize with us in ways that they might not have done so before, and that matters. That matters, and that's important. So yeah, so all statues matter. It's so funny being on the other side of this because people would easily say, "Oh, you're just doing that to be blah blah blah." Like, no, it's true. There is a part of me that's doing it to be spiteful. It's just funny to me, and someone's gonna have to stand alongside me and help me understand otherwise, because it's hard for me to believe that you want to keep these statues and it's not because you're racist. Like, it's hard. Like, you got to show me otherwise. You got to show me the reasons why you want to defend a Confederate statue that represents an army that they lost. The Confederacy lost. You lost the fight. You lost the fight. You don't have slaves anymore. Like, you don't get to do it. You don't get to do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I guess. Kind of. I don't know. I guess it's kind of. I guess. I don't know. I guess you got to break it down for me. And I'm open to someone telling me about that. All jokes aside, I'm open to someone trying to help me understand what it is that's so important about these statues that you want to defend them, and also what it is so important about these Confederate flags that you want to defend them. I really need to see that. And you gotta, you get heritage Heritage doesn't do it for me because, again, your heritage involves slavery, so I can't defend that. I can't defend an heritage that has looked for and sought after my lack of freedom for their financial gain. I can't see that. I just can't see it. So for me, it's only natural that the sign of the oppressor finally gets destroyed. The symbol of oppression finally gets destroyed. That's what I see it as. That's like post World War II when Jews were burning swastika flags. Like I see it the same way. It's a symbol of my oppression. Why would I want that around? Why would I want that to be near me at all? Why? It's a symbol of what has been used to keep me as a subhuman subclass and treated like cattle for the entirety of my 400-year history on this country. So why would I want that around me? Why would I want a statue of a person who literally got his power and fame from whipping, killing, taking advantage of, and manipulating my people? Why would I do that? Why, why would I do that? It's sitting in. It is now more than ever been such an interesting time to be a biracial person in this country, man. It is that, and I'm gonna get into that in this next segment. So I'll say that for later. But yeah, it's just interesting. But yeah, it's really funny. I know it sounds bad to say that because it's kind of laughing in the face of people who are suffering. But you guys also made George Floyd challenges and have made jokes at the expense of my people dying for years. So I really don't care how you feel. I really don't care how you feel. I'll be honest with you. I'm not in the space to. Um, for those of you who actually care about our struggle, and for those of you who actually have the heart to want to love and care for your black brothers and sisters, I care about you. But for the rest of these folk who don't listen, aren't trying to listen, don't care, and aren't trying to care, there's not much sympathy you can get from me in this situation. That makes me look really pale. I gotta be careful with my lighting, man, because I will look straight up white in these videos. But yeah, so that's kind of my opinion on that. I'm glad that they're being taken down. To be completely honest with you, I don't feel bad about them being taken down at all, and I am surprised it didn't happen sooner. So yeah, that's it for that. And then next up, so as I said before, I'm a biracial person in America. This might be a two-parter because I can go into this for literally hours. But so some of you may know I am biracial. I'm half Italian. Well, I shouldn't say I'm Italian and black. My dad was black. My mom is Italian, Sicilian, however you want to break that down. I've grown up as a biracial person in America my entire life. My experience with race didn't happen until I think around the 6th grade when a white kid called me a nigger for the first time. That was my first time ever being called one. And honestly, my first time ever hearing that word. But subconsciously, for some reason, I was absolutely livid about it. And that was my first time ever experiencing racism. Like, just flat out racism. And I guess it's just, I don't know. And then my mom, God bless her, she kept me out of a lot of negative environments as best as she could. But I lived in a town in southeastern Ohio in Tuscarawas County that was predominantly white, and I was around a lot of kids that really didn't understand like racial issues. Like they didn't understand how saying the N word is racist because I had to deal with that a lot. I had kids calling me that. I had kids saying that. And their biggest thing was, well, you guys say it too, so what's the problem? I even had one kid in my school who actually tried to say, look, Africa has a country called nigger. What are you talking about? And he was talking about Niger. And like I was absolutely livid. And that was the environment I grew up around. Just a whole bunch of white people that just didn't get it. And it was frustrating for me because, again, I'm white as well. I'm black and I'm white at the same time. And it's such an interesting time, really, for me, period, because being biracial, period, there's no country for biracial folk. That's my biggest thing is that we don't have a culture that is endemic to us specifically. Like we don't have a country, we don't have a flag, we don't have a history. You know what I'm saying? We have always been the combination of two different races. We've never been a race in and of ourselves. That's why the term biracial exists, because there's no word for us. We're just a combination of both. And like I've gotten jokes because of that from both sides. Like I've gotten Oreo jokes, I've gotten mutt jokes, things like that, like mixed breed, all this other stuff. Just really ignorant stuff. And it always created this weird feeling in me where it's like, yo, growing up in predominantly white environment, you would think that white folk would claim that white half of me or that white part of me. Well, what usually ended up happening is that I was being treated like the black kid. I was treated like the black friend. Whenever there were discussions of slavery, I was one of the few kids that the white kids looked at. It was just one of those situations, and it at times caused me to be at odds with my white part of me. Like it made me not like being white. And there was a certain part of me growing up that before that happened, I had a hard time wanting to be black. Like, because again, growing up around white folk, it tended to make, and being one of the few black folk or colored folk, period, it just created this subconscious experience in me where it's like, man, am I really, like, I started hating the size of my nose. I started hating my ears, my lips. I wanted to be this white, blonde haired dude named Kyle. Like, I grew up like that. And it wasn't until I think around seventh, maybe eighth grade, maybe earlier than that, maybe sixth, seventh, or eighth grade, when I started listening to hip hop. Ironically enough, when I actually started being proud of my African American heritage, or actually was appreciative of my black features and wanted to actually like walk in that blackness. But again, it was interesting because when I interacted with black folk early on, it was often made known that I was also white as well. And it created this weird tension where you're not black enough for black folk, you're not white enough for white folks. So kind of where do you sit? And as a biracial person, for as much as we have a hard time admitting it, we gotta, you don't have to, but you choose a side basically. You choose a side on which side you want to identify with more. Do you want to identify with white side more or the black side more? And it's just weird, especially in America, where my racial makeup is comprised of two groups that have historically hated each other for hundreds of years. Like, I am an enemy on either side that I choose, metaphorically speaking, but sometimes quite literally. And it makes it tough for me at times to identify with my white, because it makes it look like Uncle Tom's Cabin. You know what I mean? But if I try to identify too hard with my my black side, I'm looked at as, yo, you're trying too hard. Like, why are you, like, you're half white, bro. Like, why are you even over here? And I remember specifically there was a moment where at my university was holding like a Black Power, I think not Black Power, it was basically a Black Lives Matter thing, Black Solidarity, where we were kind of standing in silent protest to the killings. It was around the Tamir Rice killing. And I remember I was there, and me and my other friend, who was also biracial, they were getting ready to have some black folks stand up on the stage and show unity, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of looked at each other like, should we go up there? Like, will they tell us no to go sit back down because we're not black enough? Like, I've had that happen. Like, I've been on the campus where a brother came up and was promoting his Afrocentric organization, and I had two friends with me. Both of them were black. He handed the pamphlet to both of them and walked right past me. Like, it's happened. it's happened flat out. And at times it makes it weird for me when I choose to try and, like, I guess, be in these type of spaces, because black folk can easily say, well, bro, you're half the oppressor yourself. Why would we care about what you gotta say? And then on the white side, it's like, yo, you're half nigger anyway. Why would we care about what you gotta say? It's such a weird space to be in, because it doesn't really feel like you're accepted either way. And at the same time, you are accepted either way. Like, there are people that will want you to be around, but I don't know. I guess just because of the way this country has kind of handled racial stuff and just period, like, for me to say I'm proud of my white half is almost like negative. It's derogatory. And it kind of leads me into a space where I start, like, really despising the fact that I'm white, and as white as I am black. And it creates this self-loathing in me almost, to where I almost want to reject the fact that I'm half white at all, and I just want to completely identify as black, because, as I said, because I grew up mostly predominantly white and felt ostracized because of my skin color, I wanted to be around a spot where I finally felt accepted, and I felt most accepted around black folk. But at the same time, that tension was there. It was like, you're not really all the way black. You're not really all the way with us. So we really, you can come hang out, but you're kind of like our cousin. You're not really like our brother. And it's just always been this weird feeling, and it's hard. It's hard, and at this time in this time at this time in the country, it's not about me. I understand that it's not about me, nor should it be, because black brothers and sisters out there are dying right now, and nobody's giving them justice. I get that. Even though if I was in a white environment, they call me. I mean, because that's the truth of the biracial experience. You're gonna be treated black, regardless if you're half white or not. Like if you're racially ambiguous enough to kind of pass as white, that's a little bit different. But for most of us out here, we're just light skinned black folk. That's what most people treat us as. That's what we're regarded as. Like we're not even on the black side. Very rarely does our white side get acknowledged, except as an indication of a detriment to our character. So it's just weird. Like I've had those jokes before, like, "Oh, that's your white half talking," or whenever I do something, or even like growing up around certain black folk, it's always like, "Oh, you sound white," because I sound, or not even, it wasn't even black folks saying it, it was white folks saying it, like, "Yo, you sound white," because I was articulate, because I sounded intelligent. Immediately, that got attributed to being white, which was dumb, and I used to constantly like challenge that, like, "Yo, like, what do you mean I sound white? That does not make sense." But they were like, you know, you don't sound like, "Yo, what's up?" And like, "Yo, for real?" That's what you think we all are? And it was those type of fights that I fought early on in life. And I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place. And I kind of want this to be a completely different topic together. I might have it on Periscope. I might do a broadcast on it later. But yeah, that's kind of it, I guess, just a little snippet on what it's like to kind of be biracial in America specifically. And if there are any other biracial brothers and sisters out there that can kind of resonate with the struggle, feel free to let me know. I mean, this is just as much your platform, or not. This is just as much your opportunity to share your experience as it is mine. Because I know there are other biracial folk out there who feel the exact same way that I feel. Never quite really felt accepted either way, and don't really feel like we belong anywhere. We're just kind of in this really weird spot, like the house Negro thing and all this other stuff. It's crazy. It's crazy the type of stuff that you tend to deal with at times being in these situations. But yeah, so that's kind of been my experience as a biracial person in America, and it's just kind of been my experience per se. Period. But yeah, so that's the end of the pod today. Thank you guys again for coming out. Really appreciate it. Feel free to comment down. Like, what do you guys think about some of the stuff that I've been talking about today? Like, do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? If you disagree, feel free to enter it in. Feel free to comment. I'm open to dialoguing with y'all about these issues. And if you haven't, like I said before, if you have any sources that could kind of support what you're saying and help me kind of change my opinion on certain things, I'll be more than willing to do that. And I'll bring it up in the next pod. Like, yo, this person brought this information to me, and now my opinion's changed on it. I'm more than willing to do that. But yes, so yeah, tell me what you guys think. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe. Please do all that stuff. Share the videos. Those help me out tremendously. I'll be doing, and I'll try to be more consistent with my Periscope presence. I just recently did a little wrong opinion side story podcast about, and I'll do those occasionally, like little topics that I want to talk about and expand on more. So I will make sure I post this on all those platforms. Look out for the next video coming out next week. Thank you guys again for giving me your time. I greatly appreciate it. Take care, y'all. Love and peace. See ya.